So, Corina Machado just walked out of the White House holding a Trump-branded swag bag, and the gift she brought in? Her Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, you heard that right. The opposition leader who fought tooth and nail against Venezuela's dictatorship just handed over one of the world's most prestigious awards to Donald Trump, and what did she get in return? A photo op, some branded merchandise, and absolutely zero commitment to support her leadership of Venezuela. It's honestly hard to believe this is how international diplomacy works now, but when you hear what Trump did instead of backing her, you'll understand why this changes everything about Venezuela's future. This isn't just about one meeting or one symbolic gesture. We're talking about the complete betrayal of democratic principles in favor of political convenience, and the timing couldn't be more explosive. Let me fill you in on what's been happening because the details of this White House visit are absolutely wild and the implications for Venezuela's future are staggering. Corina Machado isn't just any political figure, she's been the fiercest voice against Maduro's brutal dictatorship for years. She led massive protests, survived assassination attempts, and inspired millions of Venezuelans who dreamed of democracy. In 2024, she won the Nobel Peace Prize specifically for her campaign for greater democracy in Venezuela. That medal represented everything she had sacrificed, every risk she had taken, every Venezuelan who believed in her vision. Since Maduro's regime crumbled, every democracy advocate has looked to Machado as the natural leader to rebuild Venezuela. She has the credibility, the popular support, and the international recognition. Her Nobel Prize was proof of that. But that all changed on Thursday when she walked into the White House and left that medal behind. For months, Machado has been positioning herself as the rightful leader of post-Maduro Venezuela, and what she discovered is stunning. According to the meeting details, Machado believed that giving Trump her Nobel Peace Prize would cement his support for her leadership. The medal came mounted in a large gold-framed plaque ready to hang on Trump's wall with a dedication that read, "Presented as a personal symbol of gratitude on behalf of the Venezuelan people in recognition of President Trump's principled and decisive action to secure a free Venezuela." That's not just a gift, that's a desperate plea for recognition wrapped in flattery. She essentially handed Trump the one thing he's publicly coveted for years, thinking it would buy her what she needed most, his endorsement. The gesture was calculated down to the last detail. Trump has famously complained about never winning a Nobel Prize, even suggesting he deserved one more than Barack Obama. Machado's team clearly thought this was their ace in the hole, the one move that would appeal to Trump's ego and secure his backing. But here's the kicker, it didn't work. Now this is where it gets wild. Instead of backing Machado, the Democratic activist who won a Nobel Prize for fighting dictatorship, Trump threw his support behind Delcy Rodriguez. Who is Delcy Rodriguez? She was Maduro's vice president. She wasn't just some minor official in the regime. She was a longtime regime insider, someone who helped prop up the very dictatorship that Machado spent years fighting against. Think about that for a moment. Trump captured Maduro, removed him from power, and then instead of supporting the Democratic opposition, he installed Maduro's second-in-command as acting president. Rodriguez wasn't elected. She wasn't chosen by the Venezuelan people. She was chosen by Trump because, according to White House officials, she's stable and pragmatic and someone the U.S. can work with. The investigation into why Trump made this choice reveals something troubling. According to sources close to the administration, Trump views Rodriguez as a known quantity, someone who understands how to run a government, even if that government was authoritarian. White House officials have repeatedly indicated they see her as the safe choice, the person who won't rock the boat or create complications for us interests in the region. When a U.S. president prioritizes stability over democracy, you know the principles are being traded for convenience. Reports from inside the White House paint a picture of just how one-sided this meeting was. Machado walked in with her Nobel Prize, her credentials, her popular support. She walked out with a Trump-branded swag bag. Literally, photos show her leaving the building holding merchandise with Trump's signature on it. No commitment, no endorsement. Just swag. According to witnesses, the meeting lasted about an hour. Machado presented the medal with a speech about Venezuelan democracy and the need for free elections. Trump accepted it, posed for photos, and posted on Truth Social. Maria presented me with her Nobel Peace Prize for the work I have done. Such a wonderful gesture of mutual respect. Notice what's missing from that statement. Any mention of supporting her leadership, any promise of backing her claim, any indication that the gift changed his position on Rodriguez. But here's what makes this situation so problematic. The Oslo-based Nobel Peace Center immediately issued a statement after Trump's post, clarifying that Nobel medals cannot be shared or transferred. They said, "A medal can change owners, but the title of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot." In other words, Trump can hang the plaque on his wall, but he can't claim to be a Nobel laureate. He got the trophy without the honor, which is actually the perfect metaphor for this entire situation. At first, Machado seemed determined to put a positive spin on the meeting. She called it historic and extraordinary. She said the Trump administration understood the need to rebuild institutions, protect human rights and free speech, and establish a new, genuine electoral process to encourage Venezuelans to return home. But as reporters pressed her on specifics, the cracks started showing. She insisted that Venezuela already has a president-elect, Edmundo, the opposition candidate who actually won the disputed 2024 election. Here's the backstory that makes Trump's choice even more shocking. In the 2024 Venezuelan election, government-appointed electoral authorities named Maduro the winner, allowing him to cling to power. But opposition leaders, along with the U.S. and international watchdogs, documented massive fraud. Edmundo was the actual winner. The United States, under the previous administration, had recognized. As the legitimate president-elect, the international community stood behind him and Machado as the democratic leaders Venezuela needed. But when Trump captured Maduro and had the chance to restore democracy, he threw all of that aside. He didn't back the actual winner. He didn't support Machado, the Nobel Prize winner. He chose Rodriguez, Maduro's former partner in authoritarianism. Legal experts and democracy advocates are noting that we haven't seen this kind of betrayal of democratic principles since Cold War realpolitik. When the U.S. prioritized friendly dictators over messy democracy, Rachel Kleinfeld, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment, went on CNN and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. She said that choosing Rodriguez over Machado sends a message that the U.S. cares more about control than democracy. Just think about that for a moment. When you've lost the argument on democratic principles, you've lost the moral high ground, and this is coming from someone who typically defends us foreign policy. Even some conservative voices expressed concern. Senator Marco Rubio, who's built his entire career on supporting Latin American democracy, notably stayed silent about Trump's Rodriguez endorsement. That silence speaks volumes. This left Machado in an impossible position. On one side, she needs to maintain her image as Venezuela's democratic leader, a person who never compromised with dictatorship. Her entire political brand depends on it. The Venezuelan people expect her to stand firm, to demand free elections, to never surrender to authoritarianism. On the flip side, she actually needs us support to have any chance at power. Her only path to leadership runs through Washington, and Washington just told her no. The tricky part is her democratic legitimacy requires the kind of principled stand that Trump's transactional politics won't reward. So Machado is caught in a bind. She can either keep fighting for democratic principles and risk complete political irrelevance, watching Rodriguez consolidate power with us backing, or she can try to work within Trump's framework, accept a secondary role, maybe position herself for future opportunities, but that would destroy her credibility as the incorruptible voice of Venezuelan democracy. Things became even more complicated when White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made Trump's position crystal clear. As the meeting kicked off, she said Trump was looking forward to the discussion and called Machado a remarkable and brave voice for many of the people of Venezuela, but then came the qualifier that shattered any hope Machado might have had. Leavitt stated that Trump stands by his previous assertion that Machado lacks the necessary support to lead Venezuela. At this moment in time, his opinion on that matter has not changed, she said. Think about that framing. Trump meets with a Nobel Peace Prize winner who literally gives him her medal, and his spokesperson announces before the meeting even concludes that his mind hasn't changed. That's not diplomacy. That's a public dismissal. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Trump abandon Democratic allies when it serves his interests. We've spotted this pattern time and time again, and understanding this pattern helps explain why Machado is now completely isolated, with even her usual supporters scrambling to figure out what comes next. Just think about how the Kurds, America's allies in fighting ISIS, ended up abandoned when Trump decided to pull troops from Syria. They had fought alongside us forces, lost thousands of fighters, controlled territory that kept ISIS contained. But the moment Trump wanted to make a deal with Turkey, he left them exposed to Turkish invasion. Kurdish leaders thought their sacrifice had earned them us protection. They were wrong. Then there was Ukraine under Trump's first term. President Zelensky thought he had us support in fighting Russian aggression. But Trump withheld military aid to pressure Zelensky into investigating his political rivals. The aid that Congress had approved, that Ukraine desperately needed for defense, became a bargaining chip in Trump's personal political schemes. And let's not forget the Afghan interpreters who risked their lives helping us forces for 20 years. They were promised visas and protection. Many are still waiting, still hiding, still in danger because the bureaucratic process Trump's policies created made it nearly impossible for them to escape. Even NATO allies face this treatment. After decades of partnership, Trump publicly questioned whether the U.S. would defend member nations if they were attacked. He treated Article 5, the collective defense principle that has kept Europe secure since World War II, like it was a protection racket where countries had to pay up or lose coverage. Now it looks like Venezuela's democratic opposition is next in line for abandonment. The activists who trusted us commitment to democracy, who believed America would back them against dictatorship, they're all learning the same lesson. You can sacrifice everything for democratic values and partner with the United States. But the moment it becomes more convenient to work with authoritarians, you'll be tossed aside without a second thought. Political analysts are noting the striking similarity to how authoritarian regimes operate. Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, pointed out that Trump's approach mirrors Putin's playbook. Work with whoever gives you the least resistance, regardless of their democratic credentials. When you prioritize someone we can work with over someone the people elected, you've fundamentally abandoned democratic principles. Anne Applebaum, who won the Pulitzer Prize for her work on authoritarianism, mentioned that Trump's Rodriguez choice sends a clear message to dictators worldwide. If you're willing to cooperate with us interests, your authoritarian background doesn't matter. She added that this could embolden autocrats from Hungary to the Philippines, who now see that democratic credentials mean less to Washington than willingness to make deals. This left the broader Venezuelan opposition in crisis. On one side, they need to maintain unity against any return to Maduro-style authoritarianism. Their entire movement depends on it. Millions of Venezuelans who fled the country, who suffered under the regime, who believed democracy was finally within reach, they're watching to see if their leaders will stand firm. On the flip side, they have to deal with the reality that the United States, the most powerful potential ally, has chosen to back a regime insider over their democratically legitimate leaders. The complexity is their democratic mandate requires rejecting Rodriguez's illegitimate claim to power, but their practical path forward might require accepting some accommodation with a US-backed government. So the opposition is caught in a bind. They can either maintain their principled position and risk being completely sidelined, as Rodriguez consolidates control with American support, or they can try to negotiate some power-sharing arrangement, participate in Rodriguez's government to maintain influence, but that would fundamentally compromise everything they fought for. Things became even more tense when several major Venezuelan exile groups expressed outrage at Trump's decision. The Venezuelan American community in South Florida, traditionally strong Trump supporters, issued statements questioning how the president could back someone who was part of Maduro's inner circle. Carlos Vecchio, who served as the opposition's envoy to Washington, couldn't hide his disappointment. Though he stopped short of directly criticizing Trump, his carefully worded statement about hoping for clarification spoke volumes. So let's break down what this means, because it's not just a fascinating diplomatic story. It has serious consequences for how democracy promotion works and whether the United States actually stands by its stated values. At the heart of the issue is whether America will support democratic movements or simply install whoever seems most convenient. If Trump's Rodriguez gambit succeeds, it fundamentally changes the calculus for opposition movements worldwide. For decades in American foreign policy, we've at least paid lip service to the idea that democracy matters. Presidents have championed free elections. Secretaries of state have condemned electoral fraud. Ambassadors have stood with opposition leaders facing authoritarian crackdowns. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with that ideological framework. He prefers transactional relationships, believing that deals matter more than democratic credentials, that stability trumps legitimacy. If Rodriguez consolidates power with us backing despite her authoritarian pedigree, that sends a devastating message to democratic activists everywhere. It tells them that all the sacrifices, all the protests, all the international recognition means nothing if Washington decides to go another direction. It opens the door for future administrations to abandon democratic allies whenever it's politically expedient. So, here's the deal. Corina Machado just gave Donald Trump her Nobel Peace Prize and received a swag bag in return. Trump chose to back Maduro's former vice president instead of the Democratic opposition. This isn't just about one meeting or one country, it's about whether the United States genuinely supports democracy or if we've entered an era where authoritarian credentials don't disqualify you from American backing as long as you're willing to make deals. If Trump's approach becomes the new normal, if choosing stability over democratic legitimacy is now acceptable, then we're basically saying American values don't matter anymore. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where convenience and control provide immunity from principles. It's about so much more than just Venezuela or Trump's foreign policy. It's about whether we genuinely have a system where democracy is valued or if we're just stuck with whatever the powerful find most useful. Most folks around the world understand betrayal. They may not grasp the intricacies of Venezuelan electoral law or State Department protocols, but everyone understands what it means when someone fights for freedom, wins international recognition, and then gets tossed aside for a former regime official. That's not complicated geopolitics. That's just abandonment. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up. The next few weeks are going to be crucial as Machado decides her next move, as Rodriguez tries to consolidate power, and as the Venezuelan people watch to see if their democratic dreams will be crushed by American pragmatism. The stakes have never been higher, the betrayal more obvious, and the outcome more unpredictable.